Hi, Barton.
Hey, how are you, Cathy?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm having a great day
That's
here.
excellent.
Yeah, very much in flow. All right.
So we had a number of people register. We'll see who shows up. I don't know about you guys. We're in lockdown here in Ontario again.
Mm,
So parents with kids at home all day. So I think that a lot of people may go for the recording afterwards. So we're going to wait a few more minutes and see. Otherwise,
okay.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Good to finally get on with you. So
Good to
it's great.
connect again. Yeah. And everything went well over the holidays.
Yes,
Good.
yeah. Yeah, things are good. Very
Excellent.
thankful. Very thankful. Got some new changes to some labels like this one. It's
Ah,
really happy with it.
mm-hmm.
Upgraded memory. One of my favorite products for sure.
Well, for sure, we want to talk to everyone about that, and I do want to be mindful of your time. So as people jump back on here, we'll just power through, anyways. So
Yeah, sure.
I figure we'll talk for about 45 minutes or so, and
Okay.
then if there are any questions, people can answer. Hi, Leo. And you guys type in the chat. I'm not going to get in the way of Barton talking because he's the pro, and I'm just here steering the ship. So any questions I will field, and you guys can just put them in the chat there. Don't worry about raising your hand. Just put them in the chat, and I will pass them along. So let's get started. I want to introduce you to my friend Barton. Barton is a chemical engineer, a nutritionist, and the founder of Upgraded Formulas. He is passionate about helping people combat the stresses of daily life, the toxicity of the modern world, the utter lack of nutrients and mineral absorption issues that we all face. And he has made it his mission to reduce suffering by increasing the public's understanding of the human body's interrelationships. So that's the bio. Now let's really talk about you. How did you get to where you are right now?
Well, I did because I was helping my mother with her health and myself with amazing amounts of brain fog. Just couldn't really figure out what was wrong. And through a long course of events, I created a new way for minerals to absorb in the body because I realized through testing that the minerals I was taking, she was taking, several other family members, my girlfriend at the time, their family, her dad, a few other people were taking, the levels really weren't changing. And because of that, it was very obvious to me. And I had a background, I'm a biochemist, I had a background in chemical engineering. I also became a nutritionist, and I had been an athlete for a long time. So I had been supplementing from a really early age because I wrestled. And you obviously have to watch what you eat there and be mindful of getting the nutrients and having this feedback loop, which was, oh, I have enough energy based on what I just ate, or I don't have enough energy based on what I just ate. So that Snickers, oh wow, I realized that in like third grade. It's like, wow, I can't wrestle and also do this. And this doesn't work. I didn't know why then, obviously at 8. But those sort of life lessons really accumulated really quickly. And it never feels good getting beat, especially when you could have just eaten differently or supplemented differently. And so I was in this place of having a bunch of different angles: athlete angle, nutritionist angle. I could have wrestled in college, I chose not to. Multiple sports in high school and things, and because of all of that, I accumulated a lot of deficiencies. And I was always very aware of, you have to have enough energy if you're going to achieve anything worthwhile in life. And especially if you have audacious goals, then all the more so. And I realized that that was the key part to figure out. So I had this background. I used my background to be able to create a new way to get minerals to absorb in the body, which you can feel when you take our products. You can test using our hair test consultation process with nutritionists I've trained myself. And then you can actually see your results change. And that really doesn't happen when you're taking, other mineral products from what we've seen. So that is really the nutshell. And what's cool about it is that, you know, all the warning signs that our body gives us in terms of symptoms are really just that, they're warning signs. And when we go to the root cause, there's always a mineral deficiency associated with that. There might be heavy metal toxicity there as well. There may be other issues at play, but there's always mineral deficiency. So vitamins are important, but minerals are even more important. And I could go into why, but that's how and the why and why it matters. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, I could say a lot more, but I'll pause there.
Well, you know, you obviously were way ahead of the game, more than most people. So if we back it up and we talk about the idea that people, I think, have a generalized concept of vitamins, but minerals are kind of the forgotten sister in the loop. So I think it would be beneficial for people listening to actually just take it back. Let's talk about what a mineral is, where we get our minerals from, important minerals, and the absorption issue, of course, that you were talking about, because you can have all the minerals and have all the right concoctions, but if they're not absorbing, that's a key part of the issue. So let's back it up and talk about actually what a mineral is and some of the functions that minerals do.
Okay. Yeah. What is a mineral? Mineral is an element that your body cannot produce, that your body absolutely has to have on a daily basis and does not store well. So all of those things are important to understand individually, but that's what it does. Now, where you're getting them is you're getting them from your food, but the soil is depleted. I'll say that one more time. The soil is depleted. So what does that mean? Well, you have about 40% of the nutrients you had only 60 to 80 years ago. So in our lifetimes, for example, my parents' lifetime, they've watched a food source go from sustainable to really unsustainable by itself. If you're looking to live optimally, it's just not possible. I thought it would take longer. I thought it would to get to this point. When I first started working on the problem, I didn't know it was this severe. But even conservative estimates have it as that, and there's less conservative estimates as well. So the problem with the supplements that you're taking right now, if they're minerals, is that they're at least 5 times larger than a red blood cell. So here's your red blood cell. They're, much larger, right? If this is a fist, this is a basketball. So imagine trying to put a basketball into something the size of your fist now, and understanding that this is a permeable thing. This is a red blood cell. This is going to distribute throughout the body if you're small enough to get in here and stable. And so that's where we come in. We're about 1,000 times smaller than that red blood cell with all of our supplements, all of our products. The cool thing to understand is that although we've been taught we need up to 7 different forms of magnesium, for example, we don't need that as long as our body receives magnesium in a small enough, stable enough form that it would get post-digestion. And what I mean to say by that is, imagine that your body gets magnesium only from food. It's not as if the body's going to go, sorry, I can't send it, that wasn't taurate or glycinate, etc. So I can't send it to the brain, or threonate, I can't send it to the brain, or the muscles. It's not malate, so I can't. All of that, we could put every single form in our product, and it wouldn't matter because the end result is particle size as I'm describing that. Then another example would be, imagine the yard that comes to mind. Maybe it's the yard you grew up in, but the yard around a house somewhere in childhood that's easily memorable. Picture a basketball out in that yard. That math, the ball fits easily there. Now, if you try to put the yard inside the basketball, you'd have to obviously break it down into small pieces. And if the ball was permeable, it would be able to absorb and go in. And really, the way I look at every problem that we have in society is to some extent, something's being poorly transferred or poorly absorbed, poorly utilized. And those are the things that on a cellular level, when we chunk way, 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 way down, it's the same thing. It's a little microcosm. It's a little micro solar system. And we use this test our hair analysis with really awesome consultations that really that's the fundamental part that changes everything. Because when people have done a test and like, oh, well, and if they didn't have a great experience, it's because they didn't have a consultation where they actually understood the deep intricacies of it. And frankly, most people don't. And that's the reason why we have a course now for practitioners. So, because my goal is really to change healthcare with this test, among our products and other things we'll offer in the future. So, because when you do the test, the obvious answer is, here's things to eat differently and more of, and here's things to supplement. It's not drugs. So it's not taught in medical school because the pharmaceutical company pays for that curriculum. I think most people know by now. It's just an obvious truth. And because of that, there's this new wave of people going, it's actually really valuable. This is just another way. It's another data point, and it's a lot more accurate than blood. But we can talk about that too if you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's touch on that. So hair mineral analysis, go through the actual testing because I know what it is, but a lot of people may not. It's unintrusive, easy to do. Mm-hmm. And I know that you've probably had pushback from integrative practitioners. I know on our end that we have when we've tried to. So I've done hair mineral analysis testing and I get pushback from doctors and even naturopaths saying it's people not valid.
People that don't know what they're talking about push back on it. And what I mean by don't know what they're talking about, maybe they've done it and they're like, oh, for example, I could have done this too. I had the opportunity and this was a life-changing moment for me. I have taken all the hardest chemistries available in any college in the world. And I could have said, oh, well, I certainly know, I've done organic chemistry, physical chemistry, quantum mechanics, quantum physics. I could have looked at this test and went, I know a lot about nutrition and all of this, and I'm a nutritionist. And I am pretty certain that I can glean everything I need to glean from this test. And I would have been completely wrong.
Well, I mean, the pushback that I got, for instance, your hair is colored. That's the big one, is your hair is colored.
So the one there, that is, to speak directly to that, is, I'm so glad you brought it up. Cobalt and tin are the only things that show up as elevated in colored hair. So it's not affecting your overall macro minerals and, more important, trace minerals, trace elements that we're really looking for. So it's, and that's the case in part because if it weren't accurate, you wouldn't be able to send it to 2 labs simultaneously and get within a 5% sort of margin of it. And then it also, our nutritionists wouldn't be able to sit in a conversation over the phone with someone and describe 10 things that they would otherwise never know if the results weren't accurate, right? So those are 2 things. Like, really think about that. Imagine it's you, and imagine somehow they're sitting across with this test, and they can tell you that, or they can ask you, so, Cathy, have you not dreamed in a long time? Is that something that's happened for you? And you're like, how would you know that? Like, how would you know that? When you look at your thyroid blood work, have you been low thyroid for a long time? Have you tested blood work on that? Oh yeah, I have. Have you ever tested your adrenals? Yeah, I did. Okay, well, we're looking at the adrenals from this test too. And you're like, oh, you can do that? Yeah, you can do that. It shows that your adrenal ratio is really, really skewed. Do you have these symptoms? Oh yeah, I have 4 out of 5 of those, or I have 5 out of 5 of those. Okay, and on and on and on. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're talking hormones here. We're talking
for sure.
Bone health. And so, everyone, I want you to understand that, your mineral, not just mineral balance, but mineral ratios. And it's the imbalance and balance within these minerals that can really, your symptoms may be profoundly affected by this. And it's not something really that anybody's talking about. And so that's why I wanted to have you in this webinar so that, you know, I know a lot of us are trying to move forward in our health, and it's a new year and we have health goals, but without understanding what Barton's saying, you're going to bump your head a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, when it comes to the hair test, just go through, it's very simple. Just go through with them what it is, how simple it is, and maybe let us know why a blood test isn't similar.
Sure. Yeah. Well, let's see. So to go through the test, the way it works is you order it on our website, it ships to you, and then you can get some help from someone that you're close to if they want to help you with the sample. I've taken my own before. Don't really recommend that the first time. You know, just make it easier on yourself. Bring it to whoever's cutting your hair, for example, and then you get your sample. And I know it will say, like, even on ours, and we're changing this because we thought it would be helpful for people, but we'll say, you know, preferably avoid colored hair. Now, what we're saying there is, if your hair is not dyed all the way to the root, use that, because you won't even have the false positive of tin and cobalt, which really don't matter, I'll be honest, for the big picture, because there's only a certain number of things we can optimize in one test anyway, right? So you can't optimize everything for any system all the time. You pick your 4 or 5 leading indicators and you go, we're going to work on these 4. And you work on those 4, and then you retest in 90 days, and magic starts to happen, you know, within usually the first 21 days for people. And I always tell people to grab our bestsellers bundle, because you want to be able to get the quick wins and start feeling better. That's usually where it's all about, what it's all about for everyone. I want to feel better right now. So when you start taking those 4 products, that will really, really help. And obviously, you know, the hair is not going to grow immediately out of your scalp. In that, you have about 8 weeks of data in 1.5 inches of hair. So you would take the hair, you know, within, you know, if your hair is, you know, 12 inches long, you only want the 1.5 inches closest to the scalp. So you cut it and then you snip it again after 1.5 inches or so, even 2 inches. So, and the closer you get to the scalp, if your hair is only 1/4 inch and you're buzzing it, for example, and you're putting that in our paper envelope that comes with the kit, and putting it back in the kit, resealing it, putting the return package on it and the return mailer, and, you know, dropping it off, then that's fine too. You know, it could be a small, short amount. That's actually more recent hair, obviously. So that's great. Now, if you don't have hair on your scalp or not enough, you can do other regions of the body. Need about a tablespoon of hair. You just take a tablespoon into the bathroom, for example, and just cut it, put it in. Way easier. In the time that it would take you a drive to and from a lab, you could have done multiple hair analyses. So.
And why hair analysis versus a blood draw?
Well, blood is us on our best behavior. What I mean by that is your blood is mission critical to keeping you alive. So it's not a great place to test. They call it like white coat syndrome. People will do better than they normally would because they know they have blood work coming out.
That's so true.
Yeah, so true. I've done it myself. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to drink tonight. Yeah. So that you want to average, and you get 1,000 times more data per nutrient sampled. 1,000 times more data. Really let that
does the hair hold it longer? Does the hair hold the minerals longer than a blood spot?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, of course, you know, so over 2 months to, you know, imagine you have this huge amount of data versus 1 day. So you have 1,000 times more data there. And then you're taking the average of each one of those elements. So that's where it really wins. And what's awesome is that the more important thing about this is that for people, and you can just tell some people haven't thought deeply about it if they've ever criticized it, because I can guarantee if they went through our process, they just would change their mind if they were at all open-minded. some people aren't. Even some of the smartest people out there, they're just incredibly close-minded. The thing that's interesting there is if you only check your iron levels, for example, and you see or maybe you don't even, and a doctor will say, oh, you know, take iron, you know, you have all the symptoms of anemia. You could have copper anemia, and then you could get into a dangerous place because you don't have the info. And if you only did blood, you would be in a really dangerous place. Really dangerous.
And that's so important, you know,
it's
when
so
we're talking,
important. You can just about die from it. You could die from it. So,
and, you know, we're talking about synergy of minerals and also and if you are in a disease state too, this becomes more critical. For instance, if you are someone who is going through cancer, has had cancer, you don't want to be topped up in copper, right? You don't want to have a ton of copper in your system. Now, is there a synergy between the minerals?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And with virtually all elements, we want some amount of them. It's interesting. You know, copper is important for ATP production. Almost no one knows that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so there's, you know, copper is antibacterial in the system. And if you have too much zinc, you displace copper. You get bacterial infections, which then sets you up to be more likely to get the viral infection that you were trying to prevent by taking zinc in the first place.
Exactly.
And
0. people don't know this.
Yeah, no, that has not been discussed one time in the past couple of years of COVID. And it's not a good thing, because I know people directly that have over supplemented with zinc, done our hair analysis. My friend Brent was one, I've told that story a couple times, and he just went, I won't repeat what he said, but he was very upset because he said, I just spent 3 days last week off of work trying to find a holistic biological dentist that I can trust to go in my mouth and figure out what this bacterial infection is all about. And that was his response to me saying, be careful with over supplementing that zinc. He was doing something like 50 milligrams. He was doing 50 milligrams. Yeah. And which is not even as high as some people are doing.
Well, of course, on the internet, you're hearing, you know, ACE and zinc, and zinc, and it can be, you know, supplements can be harmful. You know, you have to understand this. They're amazing for you, but supplementing, you've got to know what you're doing, and knowing a practitioner that can help you out, I think, is so important. Now, when you talked about your formulations, and I can't remember what you called it, like your best four or whatever, are there packages of synergistic minerals that you can take without thinking about things? And what are they?
Yeah, those four you can take without thinking about the synergy. They're either synergistic or they don't interfere. Let's see. Yeah. And then, I see there's a time. Yeah. I see someone just asked a question. Okay. That's a really good question. One of the problems I see with a lot of formulations out there is that, you know, I don't think they're intending to do this. They're just not aware that they've included a certain nutrient that is a blocker for other nutrients in that formula. And that's obviously very problematic. For those reasons. So there are things that you really want to avoid for sure.
Can someone go willy-nilly and just go start a supplement, you know, a bottle of supplemental minerals?
I don't recommend it. Now, I mean, ours have those considerations in mind. I can't speak to every product of someone else's line, that's for sure. But
so is the testing something you need to do every year, every 6 months? So you get your mineral balance. So you start off, you know where your place is. You take the products, you get to a good spot. Is this something that you've got to be tweaking, like a blood sample, like once a year?
Yeah. So really, we should be testing quarterly. I test every 2 months. Quarterly is the least amount of time that you can hope to be optimal. The reason why is because, at least with our products, they really absorb. And because of that, and you can feel it, especially when you take our upgraded magnesium, you sleep better from the first night, usually, if you're and you're aware of that if you're tracking your sleep with different measurement tools. I like Oura. I look mainly at deep sleep. That's the main driver of all the other. It's a lead domino, and Whoop is usually way too much data unless someone is very much in the field of that. They just want to really geek out, but that in itself can be a rabbit hole that's not worth doing for most people. And then so those are a couple thoughts there.
Is there a time frame for the hair samples? Meaning once you've cut them, getting them in, is that what you're meaning?
I guess that's the question here. I see Linda Martin asked this. Yes. I mean, what I can speak to is like, is there a time frame? So like, what is the time frame? What is the time frame for hair samples? I think she means like what I said,
cut and deliver,
which was
maybe
6 to 8 weeks is how much data you'll have there. If you send in, 1.5 inches of hair or less, a 1/4 of an inch obviously is going to be less. It's going to be more recent. So if you're testing really often, like let's say you're a triathlete or something, and you're like, all right, I'm changing. I want to be on top of this. I have a race coming up. I'm going to do a ultra marathon or something. Then you might take that 1/4 inch closest to the scalp, and that'd be, maybe the most recent 2 or 3 weeks. So there's that. And then as far as turnaround times are great. They're the kit ships to you. Once you get the kit, it's usually 10 days or less that you get your results, not by mail but by email. So it's faster that way. So you get your results locked PDF via email. All data is kept securely offline, unlike say things like 23andMe, which Google just purchased. Ads are about to get a whole lot more targeted.
If they're not already, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, someone's looking on your website. Are the prices on the website US or Canadian?
US.
Okay. I want to take a little bit of a show. Well, first of all, I have a question. So people start taking a good mineral supplement. What are the first? You said sleep. What are the next things that people can like right off the top experience? Energy,
less anxiety immediately with the upgraded magnesium. Yeah, that's a big one. Constipation too. Because our products are fully absorbed, they won't ever cause constipation. They won't cause that either, but they won't cause diarrhea or loose stools. You only get that with like magnesium that doesn't absorb very well, and products and forms, different, traditional absorption methods, that because they don't work can be helpful for relieving constipation. So yeah, those are a couple thoughts there. So what else? Energy, stamina. Our manganese is great for, it might take you a full bottle or more to get through, but slightly better core body temperature because it's working on the SOD manganese pathway, and it's a large dose and it's well absorbed. Same thing with our upgraded iodine. I recommend those for people together. It's a great immune system booster too, those two. Iodine is antiviral. Ours has almost no taste, which makes it very rare and in and of itself, and it's a large dose. Research shows that we eat something like 100 times too little iodine in our daily diet, and that is, for example, the healthiest, well-developed country, the healthiest, longest lifespan country in the world is Japan. They eat 100 times more iodine than we do. Those are just totally different studies, but it's an interesting correlation. They also, I think, as a society, do a lot of things differently, but certainly my takeaway there is, well, that surely doesn't hurt. And iodine helps you protect against environmental toxins, which are a big contributor to poor health. heavy metals, once they're in the body, we use minerals to get them out of the body. It's the safest, most secure way to do it. Chelation therapy is dangerous, expensive, really ineffective. Yeah, that's not even my opinion. I've just read so much research now. I've talked to so many people firsthand. It's just factual. Now, do some people get some results? I think some people get some results because they're shaking some things up in their body, and there's some improvement based on some people based on how toxic they are. Others can literally, using chelation therapy, cause organs to either fail or become really compromised because it's such a undue stress so quickly on those organs. Now the body has enough innate intelligence, it would never do that.
There you go. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. You're just providing the body with what it needs to do what it's supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, now can toxins impede mineral absorption? Yes, they can. Yeah, they can. And so what do you do? Oh, well, some people are like, well, just the takeaway from there. That means that it's much more important to send more good soldiers into battle, so to speak, because they, that zinc and selenium and sulfur, those are going to help push out mercury and help you accumulate less mercury. So if you're being exposed to, let's just say mercury, or let's just say aluminum, then certain nutrients are going to protect you against those. And we cover those things in consultation. So yeah, based on someone's individual results, but you pretty much assume that you have heavy metal toxicity to some level, even if you didn't have, mercury amalgams or, things like that. There's so many people are aluminum toxic and lead, and after about 30 days, with the acute exposure to lead, for example, we know in research, it's not shown in the blood anymore. Because why? Well, the body is really, really smart. And it goes, if this just is allowed to circulate in the blood, this is, again, also why you don't want to test the blood for this. If this is allowed to circulate in the blood, it's going to cause damage. So we're going to store it in fat. We're also going to make more fat cells if you don't have enough. And we're going to put it in there. And this is part of the reason why it becomes hard to lose fat. And this is part of the reason why this is also a long-term ideal weight loss strategy, because when your body receives all the positive nutrients, the selenium, for example, the zinc, the sulfur, in the case of mercury, then it feels safe starting to push out more and push out more and push out more. So the thing that I have people look at and visualize is, imagine just a spiral upward. And you're testing, you're making changes, you're testing, you're making changes, you're testing, you're making changes, you're testing, you're making changes. And if you're not doing that, you're guessing. And it's a lot like driving a car and going, all right, I need to go, let's just imagine a straight line. And imagine that you look at the map once. You just don't do that. Or you look at your navigation on your phone once. You never get to your destination. So you need to consistently check in, and you course correct. So yeah, that's how to think of it. And I've yet to see anyone not benefit from it. And there are millions of functional tests out there. Some are valid, some are a big cost investment. But the thing that I like about what you're doing and your products and so forth, especially the hair mineral analysis testing, is you are improving the health of the body to do what it should be doing. It's not overwhelming, it's just providing what's needed. And Leo asked a question, and I was going to turn into this eventually. We talked about some health issues. We talked about, the bones and the fatigue and the adrenals. But when it comes to mental health, Again, this is another area where minerals are not given their due value.
Right.
Can you explain how they work into the mental space of people?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to. That's a great question. So we have something called upgraded boron, and boron activates vitamin D. So if you have enough boron in your body, guess what it does? What doesn't happen to vitamin D? Doesn't get activated.
I didn't know that.
I haven't heard anyone talk about this, but that is, I mean, it's essential, now. Too much boron, too much anything for too long, it's not good. So that's one. Lithium is another. Lithium, people think that's a drug. It's an element, and you can find it online. We'll soon have a product with lithium in it. That product will also have chromium to help blood sugar stay more stable. We also, and so mental health often, can be seen as this big one thing, but it's really a slope, I find, right? So what keeps us on the slope and keeps us from sliding down? Things like controlling our blood sugar by giving our body being able to activate the enzymes by using minerals, because that's how enzymes get activated, is by minerals throughout the whole body. And so they're like these bits of code that come in and teach our body, say, okay, run this function. And if it's not there, it's a lot like a website that you load and like you notice that, oh, well, this piece of code must be wrong because this banner is not displaying well. Everything else is fine, but maybe it's loading slowly and the banner's not working, or this add to cart button is not working, or things like that. So that's a specific enzyme that you need to change the code somehow by, in this case, knowing your deficiencies and then supplementing with something that really absorbs well. So lithium is one. We found that there's a lot of research on groundwater that doesn't have lithium, and suicide rates and depression rates. So that's a big one. I think, activating vitamin D, though, with boron is key. Also, magnesium taken with vitamin D is big. Magnesium on its own is huge for anxiety. And the thing with that's interesting is that if you take too much vitamin D and you don't have magnesium, or you have chronic deficiency of magnesium, which a huge number of people do, at least like 7 or 8 out of 10 have a deficiency, and a large percentage of those have a chronic deficiency. In other words, it would be very hard with normal supplements to ever restore their levels. And that's where I was. That was one of the main deficiencies I had. So that is key, because it keeps calcium from over-absorbing through vitamin D supplementation, which, if that happens, your thyroid is then lower. So your metabolism is lower. So now you accumulate heavy metals faster and other toxins, instead of just being able to burn through. When your metabolism's slow, things settle in the same way that silt settles in a river that moves slowly. And so there's just so much to it. It's really beautiful. It's complex, and that's why we offer consultations, because although, to your point, there are a lot of functional tests out there, not all are actionable, and then some that are actionable like this are just incredibly complicated. And I'm willing to deal with something incredibly complicated if it's incredibly helpful. And if it's the same thing, if it's inexpensive, but it's the same sort of thing I would do if it costs 10 times the price, which this is, then I'll do it, So luckily it doesn't. But those are some big ones for mental health. We have something called upgraded metabolism. It used to be called upgraded sugar support. And that has a bunch of different minerals that help with the blood sugar and insulin relationship. Because if that is off, someone's going to be, at the very least, like hangry and not their best self, and easily irritable, things like that. And then that could lead to not not taking the best action, delaying work, that can cause anxiety. Then you don't sleep well. Then you eat late, then you don't sleep well, for example. And then you wake up the next day and you just hope it's going to be different. So
you do this in tandem with nutrition, or solely looking at mineral balance?
Both.
Both.
Yeah. Okay. One of the biggest things we tell people is, for the next 90 days, stop eating X food. You don't have to, but you'll make faster results if you do. Mm-hmm. And then obviously, if we're telling you that you need to supplement potassium, you should also eat more potassium foods. So that's a quick Google search: foods high in potassium. Eat the ones that you feel like you want to eat. And we don't tell anyone to try to eat a certain diet. We just tell you to get foods high in blank, 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 things like that, that leaves you the freedom, and without trying to tell someone that is vegetarian that they need to eat more of this. But we'll just tell them, hey, for example, you're low in phosphorus. Now you can try to get that from plants, but it's really hard. Mm-hmm. The best way to get phosphorus is the easiest, for sure, without a question, is going to be from meat, grass-fed meat. So, things like that. But we won't say, oh, you need to switch your diet to this type of diet. That's not for us to say.
And then when someone sends in, or their mineral analysis is done, they have the results, are formulations made specifically to reflect what is needed, or are they individualized, is I guess what I'm getting at?
Yes, they are individualized. The way we do it is, we have our standard products, and when you come through our consultation, you'll see that you'll be asked to grab something you can take notes with and refer to. Mm-hmm. And that is that's really important, because you're not going to remember it in a month. Like, you won't remember all of it, so you want to be able to go back and look at it. And we keep the consultation costs pretty low, so we don't send out notes after. That's your thing. So they always mention that, the nutritionists mention that. And I think you just start to see really, really good results from that approach. So that, and tell me, what was the rest of the question?
I just asked if you do individualized, so someone gets the results, and do you put together?
Right. So really what we're doing there is, we're not going to make like a magnesium supplement that has only the amount per serving that you need. But what we'll do is we'll say, hey, you should take 3 capsules instead of 4 per day, or you should take 2, per day, based on your goals, your activity level, your body weight, things like that.
So these are pills, not a liquid form?
These are almost always liquids, for example, but we have one product that is pill form and liquid form. That's what I'm referring to, the magnesium. Okay. Upgrade magnesium. So, yeah.
And just, we're hitting the 45-minute mark, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. When it comes to adrenals and minerals, I had someone who asked me this question as I sent out some emails. What is the key mineral or minerals to help address adrenal fatigue? Because trying to do this with supplements and trying to do this with adaptogens, it's very difficult to get them under control.
Yeah. I always tell people that I love Ayurveda. I love Eastern medicine, Chinese medicine. And I've never seen it move the needle more than about 10% for anyone. Personally, I just haven't. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people will, claim they've heard something, but I've never met anyone that had a huge thing. And the reason why is because, licorice, for example, is an adrenal support thing, but I don't recommend it except additionally. Like, take it because it's a really good tasting tea. Even if you don't like licorice flavor, the tea itself is actually awesome. But it has sodium and potassium and a little bit of magnesium and some other things. The most important minerals for your adrenals are those 3. So you need plenty of magnesium, plenty of sodium, Salt is not bad. In fact, if you don't eat enough salt, you can guarantee you'll have adrenal fatigue. You'll feel terrible. Your blood pressure will be off. It might even be high just because you don't have enough salt.
And that may shock a lot of people.
Oh, it should. It should,
Yeah.
because they've been taught the wrong thing for a long time. Yeah. Again, who funded the study? Hypertension studies from a long time ago, and they came. I don't know how much ill intent was from this. I think they're trying to. They probably didn't understand how much it would impact people, but they realized, sugar interests realized that when you ate a lot less salt, you crave sugar more. So they funded studies and they skewed results. They cherry-picked results, I should say, that showed that that salt was causing hypertension. And it's just completely false. You can guarantee you'll have issues and you'll die earlier if you don't have adequate sodium intake, for sure. The reason why is your heart sits in a bath of sodium and potassium, and it's a key fluid, or key part of the intra and extracellular fluid exchange. So your body quite literally doesn't feel safe without enough salt.
Exactly. There's a book out about that.
Yeah. We test for this. We test for this too. Yeah, we test for this. There's so one thing that we look at with the hair test that you won't ever see with blood is a couple different ratios, one of which is a emotional ratio. I can guarantee someone will exhibit bipolar disorder that's similar if they're below a certain level. I even had an ex-girlfriend that quickly became an ex-girlfriend because she couldn't handle stress, and normally I got her results back and I was like, oh man, because what I would normally tell people that had a result like that was, it's going to be really hard for you to be in a relationship, even with yourself. It's life's going to be tough until you fix this. And she had done a lot of things that caused her to be low in sodium. And so there's a lot to it. And this idea that we can avoid looking at this. If you did this with blood, it would be like $2,500 to measure everything. And if you don't measure everything, you don't get the relationships. If you don't get the relationships, you miss so much, because our bodies, just like this planet, are elemental.
And the relationship, understanding the relationship, isn't even really done when you are talking to the professionals and seeing. We always look at things as individualized and not how they work together. And I think this is a big plus of what you're doing, is that you're seeing the interrelationships.
Yeah. It's not just about giving people supplements.
Yeah, and you can't. It's like picking out sugar, picking out salt. Like you said, you just can't hone in on one thing. You really have to understand the relationships. Does anybody else have any questions? I don't want to take Barton too far off of the mark here. So if you have no more questions, you put your website up there. I will send everybody, when I send the recording out too, I will send you all of Barton's information. It's a very, very worthwhile thing to do. One of the best and most cost-efficient tests that you can have done, I think. So
I can give people a discount too, just because I can, on their first purchase, if you like.
Yep, perfect.
How about Cathy 10? Does that work?
Sure. So I'll send that out to everybody.
Just put it in the chat there.
Okay,
and,
wonderful.
I will make sure that is live here in the next couple of minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was great. Please send me a recording of this as well. I would love to share it. So.
I will. Thank you for taking the time. Happy New Year. We'll be in touch soon. Because I think I mentioned to you when we talked before, it's something that I want to maybe take a deeper dive into as well. So thank you so much, Barton, for joining us today. Beautiful. Well, Cathy, it was a pleasure. Such a pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you. Looking forward to collaborating in the future. Yes, we will do so. Ideas. Okay. Certainly. Everybody, thanks so much. Bye-bye. Thank you.